Hey, what's up? I'm Kantis Simmons, the academic guru and leading authority on school improvement, as well as the author of Playing Your A Game, and welcome to another episode of Educate to Elevate. Now, of course, you see today we're in the Media Center. We are down in Fayetteville, Georgia, at North Fayette Elementary School. And today I have the great pleasure of sitting down and talking to someone that I've known probably for a decade.
Right.
We actually attend the same church.
Right.
And anytime I've seen her stand on stage or work with students or work with other women, I'm just floored by her, number one, her attention to detail and the great content she gives, but just her presence. And I'm so honored today to have Miss Principal Dr. Jade Bolton, extraordinaire educator that's been in the game for a while. So if you would, help me welcome Principal Jade Bolton.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm so honored to finally be able to sit down with you. I've seen you from afar and the various things that you've been doing in the community. I've heard you were a great educator, holding down teachers and students and parents for years. And so now I just wanted to have this opportunity to feature you on the podcast. So from my heart, thank you.
Well, I'm very humbled by the introduction. First of all, let me say that. I don't know how great, but I have been in the game for a while. This is year 32.
Oh my goodness.
Yes. I know.
You started when you were like 5?
I'll take that.
4?
I'll take that. Actually, straight out of college. Started my journey in education as a speech-language pathologist and special education. That's where I started. And then everyone has a story, and I kind of migrated, eventually ended up in administration probably about 16 years ago.
Okay.
And so here I am today in Georgia, an elementary school principal, and I've been serving in this capacity here at this school for the last 10 years.
Okay.
So after having moved to Georgia in 2000. So again, very humbled. Thank you very much. But this has been a journey. Education is a journey.
Right.
You never arrive, and I'm sure you've heard that before, and it's actually very true. So love it, love it, love it. I think this is what I have been destined to do, or part of my destiny.
Okay.
And so it's very fulfilling for me. So I enjoy it.
Right.
I enjoy it a lot.
Let's go back. You said you were straight out of college. And you were a speech pathology, right?
Right.
And why that particular major at the time, or why that particular career?
Good question. It was all about where are the jobs? And that was, of course, influenced very strongly by my father, who was an educator himself. He was a superintendent.
All right.
I come from a line of educators, which you'll find a lot of times educators come from lines of educators.
Right.
And I'm very much fit that mold. My brother was an educator, moving up to the ranks of assistant superintendent in Little Rock, Arkansas. My mother was an educator, having retired finally after 42 years in the classroom. She never came out of the class.
Wow.
And
what class did she teach?
She taught third grade the majority of her career, and I think that she did a stint for about 3 years teaching kindergarten.
Wow.
So that's amazing to have been in the classroom in the same grade level for the amount of time that she did. And then, of course, I have had other relatives as well. My grandmother, even back in the day at Arkansas Baptist College, taught. And this was before we had that's when we had segregated schools and colleges and black colleges and so forth. And so even my grandmother taught a class of home ec, teaching students how to sew.
I remember that in high school.
Oh, yeah.
I love home ec.
So it's in the genes.
Right.
But to go back to your question, I had no intention of going into the education field. I was going to rebel. I didn't want to do it.
Wow.
I just wanted to do something different. I actually wanted to be a broadcast journalist. That was really what I aspired to do. And my father, being such a great influencer in my life, I was his biggest fan, still am, even though he's in heaven. He was my motivator and most definitely my mentor.
Right.
My dad said, you know what? You can do that, baby girl, but education's a good field too. So what if you go into speech communication disorders, that's still speech, right? Or broadcast. You know, he tried to merge it together. I listened to
That was
my
his trick.
father. That was his trick. So I majored in communication disorders and minored in special education, which kind of fit
Right.
under the speech language pathology. And my first job was in 1983 in a very rural community in Arkansas as a speech language pathologist. In fact, that was in 1983. I was their first African American employee.
Wow.
Other than a custodial position.
Wow.
So that was fun, but it was a great experience. That's where I started.
Okay.
And then continued with that, moved to Little Rock, Arkansas, where I worked in Pulaski County Special School District, and then I migrated to Little Rock School District. I then worked in K through 12 environment, and that's how I got the exposure at all levels, being in special education.
Okay.
Teaching reading, I migrated doing that.
That's why we're in the great library. She loves books and reading.
Yes, I do. I do love to read. I love, literature and everything revolving around literacy, period. But, that's where that happened. And then friends would say to me, you know what, Jade, you need to be a principal. No, I don't want to do that. But, like everyone else, went back to school thinking, I need to get an additional degree to get a little bit more money. We all know how that's played out. So I did get my educational leadership. And when I got it, I thought, well, I'm going to put my hat in the game for an assistant principal position. And boom, got it right away. And that kind of started the administrative journey. And so started in Arkansas, got moved to California, Bakersfield.
Wow.
Worked in actually the county superintendent's office there, where I was a special education principal.
Okay.
And then, of course, all these moves, and a lot of the women understand that, we get moved by our husbands and their job transfers. So we moved to Atlanta, which is my husband's home. This is where he's from. And so we've maintained our residence here, and here I am. So
Great stuff.
Yeah.
Great stuff.
Pretty good, pretty good.
So in a previous episode, we had a science teacher, and her brother was an educator, her mom was an educator, her dad was an educator, her grandmother was an educator, and she tried her best to rebel. When you were in your rebellion days, can you tell me, was there something that you saw from maybe the work-life balance of your parents that said to you, I don't want to be an educator, or what was it for you that said initially, nah, this is not for me?
Well, I saw them working very hard and sometimes not appreciated for all of the hard work and investment that they were putting into the lives of other people. They were very passionate, my father especially so. My father, and I don't want to be biased, he was my dad, but he was very much a scientist. He started out as a biology teacher.
Woohoo!
Yay! And he'd actually abandoned a career to go into medicine because of his passion to teach. He loved to teach, and he started teaching biology and turned a lot of lives around as a result of that. There were a lot of dentists, doctors, anesthesiologists, a lot of people who went into the field of medicine based on that seed my dad had planted. But again, my dad, grew in the ranks of it in education himself, becoming a principal and then eventually a superintendent. And there was the stressful side. Of course, the wonderful side is being, when you're around the kids. And even today, I can speak to that. I mean, sometimes I can get in this stressful, you're dealing with a lot of adult, not so fun issues. I'll go in my pre-K class and, I'm around all these 4- and 5-year-olds who just love you, and it's like, yes, thank you. And you remember why you're doing what you're doing. But that was one of the reasons. The other reason was money. I used to hear all the time, if you want to make money, don't go in education.
Right.
It is one of the lowest paying fields, and then even more so. I wasn't really about the money necessarily, but I think I was more about being in a field that had a little bit more respect, and maybe in my eyes at the time was a little more a draw for people. broadcast journalism at the time, I remember watching Barbara Walters and all these people, and I thought, I'm going to do that. Right. That is for me. And I loved English. I loved to read. I loved to write. So all of those things connected. I felt like I could be a really good writer. But anyway, having said all of that, those were the two deterrents for me. The money, and I could see that there was a lack of appreciation for people who I saw pouring themselves out day in and day out to youth, and really taking on that whole initiative to, pour in and help young people realize you can do better, you can be better. And but the ugly side of that, wasn't too appealing to me.
Right. We have teachers, principals, counselors, PTA staff, maybe some cafeteria workers who watch this show. I want you to fast forward from those rebellion days to today. As you've been through the various school districts, the various cities, Arkansas, California, moving around, what keeps you motivated? What keeps you getting up early, staying late? What is it about this field that moves you to continue to impact students?
Oh, that's easy. It may sound cliche, but it's definitely the children. They are, and I say this to my staff all of the time, our children don't have a voice. We have to be their voice. So I have to make sure that I make decisions for them that are in their best interest. And I'm in the game because of the kids. And of course, I'm at a different level as an administrator, but what I do as an administrator, every decision, every hire, every time I'm talking to a teacher, it is all about and focused on really the core purpose of why we're doing what we're doing, which are the kids. I'm invested. These kids are going to be making decisions for me in a few years.
Right.
We've got a lot of things happening ahead of us where our children need to be ready and capable, and
And you play a huge part in that.
Absolutely.
Play a huge part in that.
And it is such an admirable profession. I have done a 180. I've matured a little bit. And I've done a 180 in my whole attitude about it. So it is an exciting career. It is. It doesn't get the props it should.
Right.
But oh my gosh, you talk about that immediate validation that you get. And it's not just about the child having the aha moment. Oh, I understand that math problem now. It's not just that. We're in a position where we are molding young people in their character and being a good citizen. And developing, because kids come to us not knowing or having these skills. We make assumptions that everyone they're getting the same type of training or parenting. That's no longer the case necessarily. It wasn't then either. But we have a huge responsibility and a huge position, and now really trying to rectify some wrongs that could have possibly happened in young people's lives, and to really be the hope that a lot of children are looking for. There's no other profession,
that does that.
None other, that can say that.
Yeah, I often say, I know what a young person should be doing from the age of 5 to the age of 18.
Right.
And you're going to be in school. So school is your full-time job.
Absolutely.
That's where you should be for those, 18 years, 12 years.
Right.
Let's talk about your position. As a principal, you are automatically considered a leader in the community. You have the responsibility not only of the students, you have the responsibility of staff building, keeping their morale up, and then you have the responsibility of almost pleasing all of the parents. So it can be a bit much. Let's talk about your staff. So you've been here now, for a decade?
Yes.
For a decade, okay?
Since 2001.
Okay, so we're about 15 years.
Right.
About 15 years. So
yeah.
In your position, you've seen teachers come and teachers go. What would you say to other administrators who are in your position? What are, maybe 2 or 3 things that you must do to create a culture to keep your teachers inspired, to try to reduce as much stress as they can possibly, that you can help them reduce? What would you say to an administrator? Hey, if you do these 3 things, or let these be the foundation of empowering your educators, what would that be?
Well, I think the same thing we tell our teachers to do, which is to build relationships and get to know your students. It's very similar to a staff. You really incorporate almost a shared vision. It's not my vision. It's not anything that I create in my office behind my desk by myself. This is incorporated collaboratively.
Right.
And just like any other organization, you try to link people to the vision, getting their input, getting their feedback. Now, as a leader, that can be a little scary sometimes because you are dealing with a lot of personalities. I have about 90 staff when you include all of the certified teachers, the classified staff. When you include everyone in the building, that's a lot of people.
Right.
And it can be a little scary. And you have that mindset, sometimes people, mistakenly I might add, that you're going to come in and, crack that whip and get everybody to do what they want to do. And, that's not how it works. I can tell you that. And if that is your mindset, you will not be a leader very long, particularly in the age we're in now.
Right.
It is really more about, leadership is really more about inspiring people, reminding people why they're doing what they're doing in the first place, because we all get caught up in stress. Teachers have lives.
Right.
And life happens. Things, traumatic things, easy things, wonderful things, sad things, and they have to take all of that off when they walk through the door and now be the person for all of these children who are looking at them to be, the wonderful person I need for the moment.
Right, that hero.
Yeah, or the shero.
Right.
If it's a female. And so it really is about inspiring people to remember why you got in that education class in the first place. Remember
Your big why.
Yeah. Why are you here? Why are you doing what you're doing? And it's not about the paycheck. And I laugh all the time because, the backup plan is always being a teacher, right? And you'll learn, this is a very respected profession.
Right, definitely.
That is very much utilized in principle and theory and practices, just like a physician. There's a lot of learning that is ongoing.
Right.
No magical bullet comes down and you are a super teacher and everybody is going to learn everything you teach just because it comes out of your mouth. I think the other thing that I've learned as I've evolved as an administrator, because even my leadership style has changed over the years, particularly as a female. I think when you first get in a leadership role, it's a little different from a man than a woman sometimes. And I think as a female, we tend to try to harden to make sure, I'm tough.
To try to prove something.
Yeah, to prove something. And none of that works. I think you just really need to be genuine.
What's the, you said we had about 90 staff here. What's the ratio of male to female in your staff?
Oh, well, we're elementary, so we're most definitely predominantly female, and I think that's a statistic that's nationwide. It increases more in males as you move up into the secondary level, and particularly so in the high school. However, I do have males on staff. That is something that I strategically look for, to have a diverse staff. So I have teachers and staff members of diverse ethnicities, male and female, because I think it's important for your staff to be a duplication of your students.
Right.
I think that's very important.
Especially in the world that we live in today.
Absolutely. I love the whole hodgepodge, big pot of everything, because that's how you learn,
Right.
and you embrace diversity, and you learn, and that's a beautiful thing. So that's always been a priority for me, as I will, strategically look for representation across my faculty and my staff.
So let me just recap a few things. I love what you said. We talked about how to keep your teachers and your educators motivated. You mentioned this word, relationship.
Right.
I also thought about the word buy-in, ownership, where you necessarily don't see yourself as a teacher, but as an entire community, we're developing relationships with each other. We're developing relationships with the students, their parents, and because of the relationship, now you take things more seriously. Like, this is mine, this is ours.
Yeah.
Even though we have, based on, rank, we have a principal there, this is ours.
Right.
And so by participating in something that's ours, we get that buy-in from your staff versus trying to lead with the whip.
Oh, absolutely. I think if you come from a mindset, that's very 1950s, I will say that, even though I know there is still a few that believe that. It's really about, when I speak of the relationship, and again, as my leadership has evolved, I have learned this more and more, that in developing a relationship with your staff, I mean, I don't mean, we're best friends and we hang out. I don't mean that. But I mean, really sincerely listening. I see my teachers as the experts in the field. I respect what they bring to the table. I listen, and I depend on what they bring to the table.
Okay.
Hey, I'm not,
You're always learning.
I'm always learning. I don't know all of the standards. I'm not teaching. I'm not in the classroom. They're the experts, and I acknowledge that expertise that they bring. I acknowledge them as the true professionals that they are. I acknowledge the fact and am appreciative that they're bringing their gift, in that their skill and their positivity and their desire here amongst the students that we all together serve.
Right.
And I use the word serve purposely, and I use that all the time. I had a faculty meeting yesterday, and I talked about the privilege of serving, and we are serving our community in what we do, in giving back in what we do.
That's
So,
the highest level of leadership.
Absolutely.
By being a servant.
Absolutely. And so we're in this together.
Yep.
We're doing this together. So we have some very robust conversations sometimes. I realize that in my position, as they say, well, Ms. Bolton, the buck stops with you. Yes, it does. I realize that I'm going to rubber stamp whatever the decision is, but I'm not making all the decisions.
Wow.
We collectively are making the decisions. And hiring staff, I get input from the staff. If I have a teaching position, I have a committee of teachers on that committee. I get their input. We discuss it. We talk about, well, what do we need in this person that's going to be joining our family here? We're looking for not just skill, but we're also looking for character.
Right.
We're looking for a lot of things. We're looking for collegiality. We're looking for cooperative spirit. We're looking for nice.
Right.
You can't train nice, I've learned. You have to hire nice.
Wow. Did you hear that? You can't train nice.
You can't train
You have to hire
nice.
nice. Interesting.
Yeah.
I remember we had a previous conversation, and I love this phrase. We was talking about teachers and not seeing this as just a profession, but as a
Right.
calling.
Right.
And you made this phrase, I thought it was so profound. I think it's probably going to be the name of this episode here, where you said, don't teach with your head,
Only.
only teach with your heart.
You teach with your heart. Right. I firmly believe that teaching is a calling, and it's not everybody's lane. Some of us fight it. Some of us try to turn away from it. Some of us may discover it because we've kept it to the side later in a second career, sometimes a third career. Sometimes we know it and we go right into it.
Or we rebel.
Exactly. But I believe it's a calling. And just like anything, it's going to grow and manifest itself because it's burning in your heart. So you're going to chase it. Even though you don't think you are, your heart is chasing it until it catches it.
Right.
Because it's just something you've got to do. Even if you're doing it with your dolls or doing it with the puppies as a trainer, you've just got to teach. It's just in you. And so real called teachers, it's a matter of the heart. And so they teach from the heart. They use their mouths and they use their heads, but they really teach from their heart because it goes deeper than just, I'm up here in front of the class and I'm so great. It's not a mechanical thing. If you're doing it mechanically, something's missing.
Right.
When you truly do it from your heart, that's when you see breakthrough happens in classrooms. That's when you see an ease that comes about from those kids.
Awesome.
That's when you see it all come together.
Because when you put your heart into it, your heart, it pulls everything about you into that situation, into that lane. Versus a head is just a sort of just a part of you. But when you put your heart in it, everything about you, your sweat, your tears, your energy, all of that goes into what you're doing because your heart is in it.
Because you're motivated to succeed by something more than just a checklist.
Right.
You're motivated by a child and the connection you've made, or where you see this child going, or what you see in this child in their future. You're motivated by a bigger purpose than just, this is a job that I come to and I'm going to leave as soon as the bell rings or whenever my planning time is over and I'm done.
Right.
It's a bigger issue for you. It's a bigger thing for you. And so I try to connect with those teachers where it's a matter of the heart.
Right.
Because your heart is what's going to propel the greatness that teaching is really all about.
Let's talk about family real quick here. You've been in this calling for a while. You mentioned that you were married. I know you have kids.
I do.
How do you manage being the principal, the head person in charge,
Right.
and then going home to a great husband, to your kids and your family? How do you find yourself acting as the principal at home? That's one question. And then how are you balancing the two? Are there some things that you say, okay, at this time I check out. I don't bring schoolwork home. Are there certain things that you do? A previous teacher, she talked about the crate. You know what the crate is?
Yeah, hell yeah.
Right, when people pull the crate home.
Right.
She made a decision after 8 years that she was no longer doing the crate.
Right.
If that meant coming into work early
Right.
and leaving at a certain time. But she said, you know what? My life is going to change because I'm not pulling the crate home. What are some of the things that you do to manage life and manage work?
I think that's an excellent question. I would say if you would speak to any administrator, particularly a female administrator, just because, and no pun against the males, but as a female, you do wear a few more hats in the home environment that are really looking at you to be kind of the responsible for. I spoke recently, I was invited to speak by my superintendent to speak at a rising principalship seminar. He asked me to represent the county to go, and that was one of the questions that they asked about how do you find balance as an administrator. And I think, to be honest, there is no canned answer to that. It is because, remember, when you are working from the heart, you can't, it's hard to cut that off.
Okay.
But having said that, you do have to balance and you do have to cut off. I happen to have 2 adult sons. One has his own family. I'm a recent new grandmother.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. He and his wife been married. This is their 3rd year, and then I have 2 older sons. But I have a daughter in high school who is very active. She's in the orchestra. She was a cheerleader. She plays basketball. So she has a lot of extracurricular activities, and she wants her mother there. And I'm not going to have this time forever to be able to attend those kind of functions with her. So you literally have to cut it off. And it's different for different people. We all do our own different things. Sometimes I do come up on a Saturday and designate 2 hours to catch up on paperwork because I am shutting off at 4 o'clock to go to my daughter's basketball game or to spend some time with her for some girl time. Let's go get our nails done, you know, but those have to be purposeful and prioritized. My husband is, when I use the term a very strong husband, he's a very testosterone-driven, manly man. And he doesn't play. He doesn't tolerate my silliness.
Right.
I'll just put it to you that way. He will check me in a minute when I start going there. And he has said on occasion, okay, now, you're not the principal here. I think there is this tone, and teachers, those of you who are listening, you know that teacher tone, and I bet your husband or your significant other has said the same thing. There's this, you know, there's this correctness we get in our tone when we become our teacher voice.
Right.
Or we go into or translate into our teacher voice.
And I'm pretty sure you have the same thing when the man is the principal at home.
Yes.
It has his family.
I'm sure. But he will say to me really quickly, okay, you're not the principal at home. And I have to kind of check myself and say, okay.
Now, it may not feel good when he says it.
No, it doesn't. But, you know.
After years of this, you sort of.
Oh, yeah. We've been married for a while. And I know me. I mean, come on. Knowing me is, and knowing yourself and being real with who you are is half the battle.
Right.
You know, and once you recognize who you are and what those areas are that, you know, I need to probably tone this down a little bit. Are things that I think benefit me in the long run. So you do have to, and I'm not perfect at it. I'll be the first to say that there are probably times that I work. Now, I do not take work home. I will say that. I work late sometimes. I mean, school is out at 2:30, 3:30 is, you know, a typical end when we have activities.
What time do you normally get to school?
I get here at 7 in the morning.
Okay.
But I leave sometimes at 7 at night.
Okay. But when you leave, you leave.
But when I leave, I leave. I don't take work home. I don't pick it up. Now, having said that, I don't always leave at 7. Sometimes I will leave at 5, at 4 if something's going on with my daughter. Sometimes I just need to take a break.
From everybody else.
From everybody. I just need to unplug and disconnect. And so I will. But I don't do work home. And that has kind of been a standard for me for a while. I don't take the work home. I stay as late as I need to, as long as I need to finish a project or to finish what I'm doing. The emails, the phone calls, and sometimes I'm late here returning those. But once I leave, I'm done. And I pick it back up when I walk through the door. And I've been that way for a lot of years because when I get through the door, I'm invested in my family at that time. I become wife, I become mom, I become Gigi. That's what I am with my grandchild. I become all of those things, and it's really about communicating with them and making memories with my family at that point.
Let me ask you these 2 last questions. Number 1, what do you feel right now has been the hardest decision that you've had to make as an administrator?
Wow, that's a good question. The hardest decision? Well, you have to make hard decisions quite regularly, I will say that. And you realize as an administrator, you have people's livelihoods in your hands. I mentioned a minute ago, I have approximately 90 employees. And I realized that I have a lot to do with whether or not they stay in that position. That's serious.
Right.
You know, when you have people who have families, who have obligations, who have a life. And I realize how I interact or what could happen as a result of how I choose to confront something or not confront something can really impact that.
Wow.
That's serious. I take it very seriously. So knowing that you have, for lack of a better word, that power, if it is, you don't want to abuse it.
Right.
And you always want to give people the advantage in development if that's what needs to happen. Now, having said that, I hold a pretty high standard. I don't compromise because I think our students deserve the best.
They do.
They deserve the best teachers, the best custodians, the best cafeteria workers, the best assistants, the best office staff.
It's all about excellence. If your
Absolutely.
standard is excellence, then you'll make sure everything is excellent.
They deserve the best. What I alluded to earlier, but they don't have a voice. They don't get to say, these bathrooms are nasty all the time. That's my job, to make sure that they get clean so my students experience that excellence. They don't get to say, we get to pick our teachers, or we get to pick who serves us food. They don't get to do that. So I represent the silent voice. And I take that very seriously.
So with that come many hard decisions.
How many hard decisions?
I'm saying with that comes the hard decisions.
With that comes the hard decisions, and I've had to make those. But when you're driven by the children,
Right.
and remember I said, they drive my decisions.
Right.
They are the little faces that are always in my head who cannot speak for themselves, that drive every decision I make
Right.
in this building. I always tell the adults, you're an adult. You have a choice. You can choose to leave. You can choose to do this or do that. The children don't have those
Right.
choices.
Right.
So having said that, children drive my decision first, second by the staff. And I do consider the staff, but they come in second because they're grown. You know,
Right.
you have more of a say-so, and you can act on that. But I make hard decisions a lot of the time. And I think the hardest decision is when you have to separate someone because you realize this is not where they need to be.
Wow.
That's hard. That's a hard decision. I've done it. I've made it. But it's not fun.
But that's what leadership is about, though.
Right.
That's what leadership is about. One final question. I like asking every guest this question. What is the most embarrassing
Oh, no.
thing that you've done or encountered amongst your staff, your students? The other day I spoke to a young lady, and she said, my most embarrassing moment, I was teaching the class, and my blouse was inside out. And the students recognized it. What's the most embarrassing thing that you remember over these last few decades?
Embarrassing.
I know you're well put together, you know.
No. Okay, I thought of a funny one. It's more funny. I don't know if I was embarrassed. I was in the office one day, and we had this little pre-K student who was not having a very good day. It was a little girl, cute as a button, but she was mad. And her teacher brought her to the office, and I happened to be standing there. I was standing there, and the assistant principal was standing next to me, and she said, oh, here's the principal, blah, 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 blah. And she does not like the way you're behaving. I was like, oh, no. Had my principal voice on. Oh, you are too pretty of a girl to be doing this. Before I knew it, she had taken off her shoe and thrown it and hit me right in the middle of my face. And I was so shocked. And I
Like, get her out of here.
No, I looked at the assistant and I said, did she just throw a shoe at me? And it hit me in my face. And of course, they were falling out laughing because, I had my principal tone. I was doing all the principal things, and typically
And she was being just
the
a little
principal
girl.
strikes a little fear and a little bit.
At that time period, she wasn't
She
scared
had
off.
taken that shoe off like that, and it hit me right in the middle of my face.
Wow.
So that was a little embarrassing because how do you come back after that? She's not scared of me.
She's not. That's awesome. What are you most proud of right now?
Oh, when I see it all coming together, when I see that an initiative that we've discussed or something we're wanting the kids to get. We're working on launching the STEM program at our school, and teachers who are so dedicated in pouring into developing this and writing this program. because we realize it is a wave of the future to connect the science, technology,
Right. I love
engineering,
it.
and math.
I love it.
Particularly for kids. I mean, even at this young age, they're not too young to begin robotics and coding and doing all of that. And when I see kids then putting it together, and to think this started from teachers getting together, identifying a need for our students that it's really for their future. And we start now while they're young, and you see kids getting it. You see kids excited about it.
Right.
And then you're thinking, I wonder what they'll do with this as they get older. Is this going to have an impact on what they decide to do in life or classes they take in high school? I like to see what gives me pride is when I realize decisions that were made, I see the fruit of that coming forth, because it was made for the benefit of a kid, and then you see it happening. You see it unfolding. Every year we have a 5th grade commemoration ceremony. We don't call it graduation because we don't want kids to get the feeling we're done.
Right.
They're at the halfway mark by the time they finish 5th grade, and we tell them that this is the end of their elementary years and they're now embarking upon a new journey of, that whole phase of their life that's a little awkward, and, but you got to hold on. You're kind of losing this nurturing babyish, because that's what we do with our kids here. Right. And every time I go to that commemoration ceremony, it's always held, it's held now the last day of school, I always get a little emotional, because these kids I've seen since pre-K.
Right.
And I see them, they're looking beautiful and they're so proud, and we've given them all their awards, for their academic recognition that they get for all of the different content areas of growth that they've had. I feel like a proud mama.
Right, you should.
Up there, because it's like, not
only that, but students spend a lot of time with their teachers and their educators.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
The same way moms, aunts, and grandmothers have those tears, you experience them the same way.
Oh yeah, I get teary-eyed every year because I'm just so proud. I'm just so overwhelmed. And I have flashbacks of different little moments, funny things they've done, serious things they've done that weren't so well, that were, in my office, and I'm having those conversations with them.
But when they grow out of those, whether it's the 5th grade ceremony or even a graduation, being able to see, oh, I remember when.
Yeah.
You look at them now, that's...
Absolutely. But I also have to add to that, another proud thing, and I had one of those experiences just this morning, so it's fresh in my mind, is when I see teachers grow, the growth of a teacher. I'll remember when that teacher first came, and maybe they were a little closed off. They came in thinking they had it all together and really weren't as open to collaborating or as open to taking it feedback. But through that relationship, talking, whatever, they've opened up, and I see their growth in becoming now a teacher leader that is well respected in the building. That's a proud moment for me as well.
Awesome.
Because it's not only the growth of that student, our teachers continue to grow as well. And taking the ownership, and so duplicating yourself, so to speak, in the teachers that are in the building. And I get to see them making decisions or like I would make.
Right, that's awesome.
Or repeating things that I have said. That's a proud moment for me.
And it's also a meter to let you know that you are imparting. You imparting excellence. The excellence and the heart in you is now being displayed in those that look up to you.
Yeah. Again, that's humbling to even hear it, but that's really why we do what we do.
And it all trickles down to the kids.
Absolutely. They drive it. They are the driver of all that we do here.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Well, I appreciate you definitely being here on Educate to Elevate. If you've been watching this episode, I'm pretty sure you heard a lot of super duper cool things that you can use. One of the things that I really love to hear you talk about was leading and teaching with your heart versus teaching with your head. Also, the the things that you do when you want to build your staff in the area of not only, being, one of the things I love to hear you say that other teachers and educators can use, more principals, is that, hey, encourage your team, your staff to teach with their heart versus their head. And then I love how you talked about the relationship and the buy-in and the ownership and seeing what you do, not only as a profession, but seeing yourself as a servant. Mm-hmm. You're here to serve these kids.
Oh, yeah,
absolutely. And the prize and the reward that comes from that, when you have those moments and they've commenced and they've moved on to the next grade and to graduation and to their career, that's an awesome feeling.
Oh, yeah, it is, very much so. And I am just privileged to be a part of it. I'm the guide on the side.
Right.
And so I just love seeing it all come together.
It's a calling.
Yeah, it is.
It's a calling. Thank you so much for being on this show.
Thank you for asking, Ma. I've had fun.
Yeah, it was great. Hopefully you've enjoyed this podcast. If you have a question that you would like to ask Principal Bolton, just leave me a comment. I'll make sure she gets it. And if you feel like other teachers and educators would love to hear this episode, hey, be so kind. Don't be stingy. Go ahead and share it with them. And of course, we're going to have some previous episodes, so make sure that you subscribe to this podcast. Simply go to educate2elevate.tv. Principal Bolton, again, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll make sure that I'll let your husband know that you did a great job on this episode and that he'll be proud of you.
I think he is.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You guys, remember, there's only one game in life that counts, and that's your A game. I'll see you next Wednesday. Bye-bye.